Once a month, I get the opportunity to hang out with MPP, Bobbi, and Brady, and this is the June show. Great to see you. How are you?
I'm good, Dave. How are you?
Good. We're going to do a quick 20 questions today. First one that's coming at you is the Ontario budget last week. Talk. Go.
Yeah, so I had the chance to debate Bill 85, and on Thursday we ended up voting on the budget bill, and I voted in favor. I'm going to say that right off the get go, largely because the budget contained nothing that would harm the people of Haldimand Norfolk. Did it contain things that would make all of our lives easier? Nope. So I talked about in my debate, I talked about the budget missing the mark. It missed opportunities. It missed, things to grapple for us to cope easier with inflation, like insurance rates. My office is continually getting calls about the cost of insurance and how people can't afford it. So I talked about those things, but in the end, I ended up voting against the budget or voting in favor of the budget because there are a few good things in there. They're expanding spaces at the veterinary college, which we are, our farmers and folks in the ag industry severely need and have been calling for quite some time. So I voted in favor, but I really had to think that one through, and I also think that a little olive branch voting in favor of their budget may mean that they will be willing to negotiate with me on some things that are very important to Haldimand Norfolk in the very near future.
It really is that political game, isn't it? Sometimes you got to weigh the good with the bad and sort of find that
Sadly,
ground that can support you.
yeah.
Uh,
And if there would have been anything in that budget that would have harmed anyone here in Haldimand Norfolk, I would have said no, not a chance. But there are a lot of things missed in the budget, and I talked about that in my Bill 85 speech, which the whole thing is on my Facebook page if anyone wants to hear it.
Check it out, folks. Haldeman Council. Do you have time to talk a little bit about Haldeman Council and what's
Yeah,
going on there with the
yeah.
land?
So today, it's Tuesday. So today at 1 o'clock, Haldimand County Council will be once again bringing forward, I guess, the vote on the whether or not they're going to seek a ministerial zoning order for the lands at Nanticoke to build a 15,000 home subdivision. And it'll be interesting to see. I mean, one of the things that I'm a bit concerned about at this point in time is Ward 4 sits empty. The councillor there resigned, and so Ward 4 has absolutely no representation at the table. So that's a bit concerning. I believe from the people that I've spoken to, and the county did their own consultation, and I think consultation is always a good thing. And from what I understand, that consultation proved that the majority of people in Haldimand County really do not want to see 15,000 homes, which translates into a minimum 40,000 people coming to the area. And I've also spoken to folks in Port Dover who are also very concerned about that development and how it will impact Port Dover and the commercial fishing industry. And so there's a lot of things going on at that property. But I campaigned on this issue, and I maintain that nobody should live in an industrial park. So yes, there are the jobs at Stelco, and there are the jobs at Imperial Oil, and we need to maintain those good paying jobs. And but first and foremost, nobody should live in an industrial park health wise. The other thing with respect to that property is back in 2019, Dave, the provincial government deemed that area as a provincially significant employment zone. And so that means there's all sorts of protections in there to ensure that the area grows and attracts more industry and creates more jobs. So an MZO, issuing an MZO for that property, for that area, would actually undo the work of the provincially significant employment zone. It'll actually reverse it. And we all know that both the major industries out there have said, if this comes to fruition, we will likely be gone. And that's very concerning.
A couple things there. Haldeman Council, let's say they vote and they say, no, we don't want it. The province can still go ahead, can they not?
Yeah, I mean, it would be much like the Greenbelt situation, right?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
I believe
so
that. So, I question why the province, if they were looking at building houses out there, if that was an idea, then why in 2019 would they, go through the trouble of creating this provincially significant employment zone. It just
Yeah.
it seems so so odd to me, and I want to see that provincially significant employment zone maintained and supported and encouraged out there. So anyway, as of 1 o'clock today, I think things will get a little more interesting.
Wow. My next question, and I've been reading on the weekend a little bit about the sort of the dismantling of Peel region, and I got to be honest with you, I kind of like, holy heck, like what's going on there. I understand with Mississauga and with the other two regions that are involved, this is
Mhm.
sort of a they're going to be like super cities, really. Is this something down the road as Haldimand Norfolk surrounded by Niagara, Hamilton, and Brantford that we should be concerned about?
Well, I don't think I think with this government there's nothing that that we should take for granted. Yeah, I mean that is scary to think that we could be gobbled up. Part of this riding could be gobbled up by Niagara. Part of it could be gobbled up by Brant. It is of concern. I think the people of Haldimand Norfolk would really dig their heels in on that one. But reading through some of the information on Peel region, it just sounds like a really nasty divorce, and it's going to be interesting to watch that play out. I mean, you have two very big personalities on opposite ends of the political spectrum. You have Bonnie Crombie and you have Patrick Brown, who
Yeah,
have
Brampton. Yeah,
mostly taken over the kind of the communication spotlight on this, and the gloves are off.
it's going to be an interesting
Mm-hmm.
interesting take there, but I mean, it's something to watch because does this make government more efficient? Does it make it less efficient? Like you've got policing, you've got hospitals, you've got all these secondary social issues that I don't know where they go. I don't know how they split all that up. I don't know where the money comes from for all that as well, tax base wise. And you did mention Bonnie Crombie, and I had a note there, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on her because I know that you've did some work in the past, a little bit on the finance, I believe, with her. But what's she's going to run for the Ontario Liberals? Is that something down the road that you see as a positive? Is this something? Is she a challenger to the government? I mean, I know you guys probably have some common views, but you probably have some extremely different views. Is this a good thing? Do you think?
Well, for sure. So Bonnie Crombie was at Finance Committee, as you alluded to, this winter, and I had a bit of an exchange with her during my line of questioning on development, and she agreed with me. I said to her, I said, like, quite frankly, I'd be happy if you kept all the development within your region and you built up, and so you don't have to, so the province doesn't have to build out, and urban sprawl takes over our agricultural land. And she said to me, she goes, "Oh, Miss Brady," she goes, "I agree with you." She says, like, we need to intensify, and we shouldn't be taking over productive land. So, that being said, I am a fiscal conservative, and Bonnie Crombie is a liberal. But do I think that she would be a good person to hold the government to account in the Ontario legislature? Absolutely. She's a tough debater, and she knows her stuff, and she's already gotten under Doug Ford's skin on this development stuff more than on more than one occasion. And I just kind of chuckle because I look at Merritt Stiles, I look at Bonnie Crombie, and I look at myself on that side of the house, and I'm like, wow, three blonde women would be giving the Doug Ford government, a lot to chew on. So I am a fiscal conservative, and but I do think that holding the government to account, holding anyone who is in government, I don't care which political party it is, somebody to hold them to account. And Merritt Stiles, I think she's doing a good job. But I think that, going after specific issues in the Ontario legislature rather than just giving the government the floor to talk about their own agenda and to boast about themselves is very important. And I think Bonnie Crombie could really, I think she could really do good things in the House to hold the government to account, which is good for all of us.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be an interesting political climate come 2026.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think there's going to be some different thought processes, and we'll see where that takes the province. Um, One last thing, and we're really running through things here today. I'm not being debatable, not debating, not that I usually debate you, but usually
We're,
I keep looking deeper into things and then it
we're being
drives me
efficient
insane.
today.
Yeah, it drives me insane because then I'm like bugging you with these questions and you're like, oh, here he goes again. But I want to talk for a moment, and I don't think you and I have had really a good opportunity to do this, about all the positives in Haldimand Norfolk. I think sometimes, you know, you and I have been sort of knocking down these problems like poverty and housing and, land, and but let's, you know take 5 minutes and tell me about the great things in Haldimand Norfolk that you've been seeing.
I only get 5 minutes for that.
That's it. That's all you get.
So there are so many positives, and that's what makes my job representing Haldimand Norfolk so rewarding. Sunday morning I was in Port Maitland at 9:30 in the morning, and there was a whole crew of us cleaning up the pier and the beach, including the mayor of Haldimand County. Um, you know, People turn out here. I've just finished doing the Delhi Chamber of Commerce, the Hagersville Chamber of Commerce, Citizens of the Year, and Businesses of the Year. And, I'm like a broken record. I say, look, you know what? Our small communities would grind to an absolute halt without our volunteers, without our small businesses. And the way our small businesses and our volunteers and our communities work together is really special. And I think that it is something unique to rural areas, to small town Ontario. I don't think you see this type of cooperation in larger centers. And I just think we're so blessed. There are so many people out there who put community ahead of self. I mean, Dave, you're one of those people, right? Like, when you do things, you always think about, hey, how is this going to impact my community? Is it going to make it better? Is it going to make somebody's life better? And we have so many of those people. And that is what I'm proud of. And I go to Queen's Park all the time, and I know I'm biased, but I think I'm being very, very honest when I say we have some of the very best, hardworking, smartest, problem-solving people that this province has. And man, I couldn't be more proud to represent that.
It's like you said. I saw a couple clips from you on Facebook. You got your Jays hat on. You're down there doing your thing, helping out, and I think that's part of it. I think you don't. It'd be easy for you as a politician to have an ego and just walk away, but you're part of it. You want to be part of the solutions as well, and I think that's, you can lead by example, and you're doing a great job of that, because if you can go and do it, why the hell can't I? Right? It's like, get out there. Let's all do it together. I
And
think that's
who
important.
wouldn't want to be part of it, right? Like, I have my bad days too. I struggle some days going, oh man, I'm tired and da da da. But as soon as you get out there, as soon as you embrace the energy that everybody else has in our community, man, it makes your problems like just go away. And like I say, it makes me so proud to represent these people. Like, when we have a problem in these small communities, everyone rallies together. I go back to the end of December, beginning of January, the tragic shooting of Constable Perchala. And I remember a reporter asking me at that time, she says, what does something like this do to the community? And I said, well, we're angry, we're sad, we're all these emotions. But then I pointed to twin sisters, maybe in their 50s, who were tying ribbons to all the light standards. And I said, but this is also what it does. We rally around those who need love and support. And I said, that's what those women are doing. And I said, they will be joined, they will be joined by, half the community by the end of the day. And that's what we do. And so I'm just, like I say, I'm just so proud, and it makes me feel good. And we've got so many good things going on here, from small business to the people, to our beautiful land that we need to protect. We've got so much to offer and so much to, work to make sure that it stays us, stays ours.
I'm with Bobbi and Brady, and we're chatting for our June show. And I got one more question. You kind of said something to me off air, and it kind of been percolating. Let's spend just a couple minutes on healthcare. And the reason I want to do that is because some of the stats that I saw is Haldimand Norfolk needs more doctors. And you and I have talked about this before. Is there a push? Like, how, with what you do you see that the Ministry of Health trying to look at that and massage that and help that for the more rural areas all over this province? Because you've traveled all over the province and you see the rural areas are really struggling with healthcare.
Mhm.
Anything there on that front that you're seeing?
You know, I think I think the province could be doing more. I mean, I hear from medical students who say, you know, they need to increase the number of seats in medical school. Yeah, of course they do. If we want to put out more doctors, then you better increase the number of seats that, you know, are opened up to these potential folks. I mean, there are good things going on with respect to my daughter, for example, will be part of the Learn and Stay grant. She starts accelerated nursing with the hopes of becoming a nurse practitioner someday. But she'll start in the fall at Western. She's switched schools, but you know, that's a good program that helps accelerate some of these young people who want to get through the healthcare system or get onto the front lines of the healthcare system. She'll do it in an accelerated way, and it will be paid for. Um, the I guess the offset to that is she has to commit to working in an underserviced area for X number of years. I think it's 3. Luckily, Norfolk County is one of those areas. So she'll be able to come back to Norfolk County and commit to working here for, I mean, I think Addison will want to stay here forever. Who wouldn't? But she'll be able to commit to that. So there are good things going on. But with respect to doctors, I mean, I've seen it myself. I used the ER twice this winter with my son, who was my accident waiting to happen. And you know, I think we need to do something different in the ER, especially. People are waiting long, long hours, and they don't need to be. I'll tell you the scenario that I saw in the one case. So Carter had an allergic reaction. They give him a shot of whatever. Within an hour, he's better. He's, you know, depuffed and derashed and everything else. And yet we stayed there another 5.5 hours waiting for the doctor to come clear him out. And I knew what was going to happen. The doctor was going to come in and say, yep, he's derashed, he's depuffed, follow up with the family doc, get an appointment with an allergist. Yeah, we knew that's what he would say. But did it really take the doctor to tell us that? In the meantime, 3 ambulances had come in with 3 elderly patients. And I don't know if people know this, but when the ambulance attendants are standing there with those gurneys and there's no stall for them to go into, that ambulance attendant is now taken off the road. They can't move on in their job until that person has a room.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So now not only are we tying up, you know, like we got, you know, people all over, but now we're tying up paramedics from getting out there and doing their job. So I think what we need is I think that they need to look at how they can streamline the system. I recently heard that there was, and I don't want to say it because I don't want to get the hospital wrong.
Okay,
I
yeah.
think it's near Aurelia. There's a hospital that actually had whoever does like the time studies and quality control in one of the car companies, I want to say Honda or Toyota, come in and they like looked at everything, completely streamlined this hospital. And I've had some constituents who have said they've been in that hospital. Everything is tickety boo. It's like so efficient. Why are we operating in this province under different models of administration and care? Why are we operating differently from one hospital to another?
Is that because of funding, though, isn't it, and size of the hospital?
I don't think so. I think common sense is common sense. I mean, like if you have a Carter in there who you can clear out in 10 seconds, why wouldn't you clear him out?
For sure.
And I asked the question, and I wasn't trying to be disrespectful to the nurses, but I said, like, it's literally going to take someone 10 seconds, and then that person, that poor elderly person across from us, is actually going to be able to come into this bed. And they flipped through and they said, oh no, he's 6th in line. Well, okay, let's be more efficient. Let's say, okay, let's send a nurse or an RN into that stall and say, okay, young man, go follow up with the family doc. You move this one in. It just seems like someone, and I'm not sure who, if this is an administration thing, if this is a provincial thing, has really, really complicated something that doesn't need to be complicated.
Why does Haldimand Norfolk, with the 2 hospitals, why aren't we teaching hospitals? Is that too much? Like, why aren't we bringing them here to teach them so that we can use them down the road?
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard stories time and time again that people, like especially in healthcare, don't want to come here because they feel they're going to be alone. They feel like there's no support. Where in a city hospital, in a city healthcare system, they've got all these people around them, and they feel like, I don't know if they think that they're coming to an area where they're going to be the only one in the hospital on any given night, but that's what I've heard from those young people who say, yeah, I don't really want to go to rural Ontario because it scares me a bit. I'm going to have no support in what I'm doing.
Misconception. Misconception.
Misconception,
I mean,
absolutely. Yeah,
communication breakdown right there
yeah.
that you need to,
We have some of the very best nurses and healthcare
for
professionals
sure
in
we
this
do.
area.
Yeah.
They just need help, and they need help from the government to make sure it's more of a streamlined system. And those 2 nights that I spent in the ER with my son, and we were there both times, several hours, 2 different hospitals, but I witnessed that both hospitals needed more than one doctor.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you and I are both on the same page. The people that are there are doing incredible jobs with the resources they have, and they're
Yep.
pretty limited in what they can do with those resources. It seems right
Mm-hmm.
now, but they
Yep.
do Ted do they do a great job, and I do
Yeah.
appreciate all that they do
And
because
it must
I think yeah, let's support them, let's help, let's figure out a better way, right?
Yeah, it must frustrate the nurses, especially who
Oh,
are going, man, like I have to refute what this woman's saying to me, but man, I agree with her. This is so inefficient. We would
yeah,
love to make it more efficient, but we can't, right? They can't make that call themselves. So we need more doctors, or we need to expand the scope of what others do in the healthcare
gotcha.
system.
Yeah, that's yeah. Well, and you look at and I'm still trying to figure this out. What now? I think it came out in December. Pharmacists were allowed X amount of things they can do now. And I talked to a pharmacist recently, and he goes, "I still don't know what I can do and what I can't do."
Yeah,
Like,
they got to make a phone call.
right? And they can't. And let's just make it so that they can help address some of those smaller issues that maybe we can
Right.
clear off that docket and keep it
Yeah.
moving. Right? I agree
Yeah.
with you 100%. And I think the one thing I wondered about with this too is your pharmacist probably knows you a lot better than your doctor,
That's right.
and he probably knows exactly. He's not going to, if anything, he's probably going to under medicate because he's not going to take that responsibility on,
Right.
but he wants you to be
Yep.
safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if that's maybe something that needs to be clarified by the government, so it's
Yeah.
clear, those guidelines are clear, so these guys can help relieve take some of the stress off the system
And I
itself.
think the pharmacists hear more feedback from us too, right? I
Yeah,
think the
good point.
pharmacists have more time to listen to us when we're in the store, and they take more time than, maybe the doctor who's more on a tighter timeline because the doctor is scheduled. The
Right.
pharmacist isn't scheduled. He doesn't have somebody coming in at 11:30. So he
Yeah.
has a few minutes to listen to Dave and Bobby and say, that bad, nah, 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 nah. And I think there's a lot of knowledge that we should be tapping into there, expanding their scope, expanding the scope of some of our nurses, and bringing nurse practitioners, or there is a level there too called a physician assistant,
Yeah.
and we're not
Yes.
utilizing physician assistants in Ontario. In the US they actually call them, they're not called physician assistants, they're called something else. um,
But you're
but
right.
the
That's a
name in the
game
states
changer.
yeah, the name in the states actually gives the physician assistant a more credible appearance, right? But I think we might have a little bit of a political struggle here in Ontario, because you have the doctor, you have the nurse practitioner, you have the physician assistant in the middle. At first, I know this because I heard from them, doctors didn't want nurse practitioners.
Right. Yeah.
And so now we're in a situation, I think, where the nurse practitioner and the physician would say, well, this physician assistant, is making me, but we need to use all the resources we have. Let's get rid of egos. Let's get rid of all sorts of things and just make the experience for the patient much better. It'll help, relieve stress on the doctor, help relieve stress on the nurse practitioner. If we're not going to use physician assistants, then let's expand the scope of the nurse practitioner.
And I think we have to, or else we're headed for a lot more private healthcare than we realize. I think
Mm-hmm.
we got to. I like the idea of when you have an assistant that way that can maybe take some of those. And nothing's not to put health in categories as being, oh, this is less of a problem, but maybe those issues like your son that you can address immediately and move
That's
on,
right.
right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
maybe there's a follow up call later instead of
Right.
waiting
He
5 hours.
wasn't having problems breathing. He was. It was all like,
Yeah.
you could
Uh,
see it. and he needed a shot of Benadryl because a bottle of Benadryl wasn't quite cutting it. And was he at risk? No, he wasn't. That we could see that the Benadryl, the shot of Benadryl and adrenaline, whatever, had worked. Clear him out because there's somebody who needs that bed more than my son.
Right. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I agree 100%. I think that's important part is there's lots of alternatives. Now we just got to figure out, like you said, what's going to work best and more efficient, and how we can help our hospitals get to that point so they can lead.
Yeah, I'm working on that. I'm going to do some work on this hospital near Aurelia that I've been told has it right, and I'd like to go visit them, and that's a summertime project.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but we got to do better.
When do you guys break for summer? My last
June 8th.
June 8th. Okay, so you're going to be we'll be seeing you even more. You'll be everywhere again, won't you?
Yeah, yeah.
You should just flip back through your Instagram and your Facebook and go, oh.
Well, I just printed. I did two photo albums from all my Facebook photos in my camera roll, and it cost me a significant amount of money. But I want to ensure that I never lose these memories.
Do you do a journal?
I
Because
try.
you're going to have a hell of a book when you're done all this, in
You know
about
what?
20 years.
I want to work on a book. That's one of the things one of my goals, one of
One
my
of your
bucket
goals? Well, just keep that journal going. So
Yeah.
you don't forget all those things in the back of your head, right? That are critical to
Well,
what you
there's
learn.
some things that people probably shouldn't know that are in the back of my head, but
Well, that's why there's a book down the road,
it might
which
make me
followed by the
wonder.
movie, and then the TV series.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh well, what? Just keep doing what you're doing. Don't worry about the book for now. You'll be fine. You'll figure it
Yeah.
out along the way.
That's a retirement
Gonna
project.
let you go. What's the biggest thing you've learned in the last year? A personal or political? Just something that you stands out to you now that you see.
The people just want to be heard. People don't expect me to have all the answers. People don't expect me to solve everything for them, but they deserve to be heard. And I've known that for a long time, but it stands out more. And I try and tell folks that I had a gentleman a few weeks ago who who had miscommunication with my office, and he said I wasn't accessible. And I laughed and I said, I think you're the only person who might say that, because I call anyone back. It might be at 6 o'clock in the morning as I'm driving to Toronto, or 7 o'clock at night as I'm coming home. But I will call people back, and when I do make those calls, even if I can't help that person, Dave, they are still grateful that they've been heard. And so I think that is one of the big things that I've learned is people just they want to be heard and they deserve to be heard.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. The old Walter Gretzky, you have two ears and one mouth. Listen,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's
And I talk a
so true.
lot. I talk a lot, but um, I take everything in around me, and I've really worked on that over the years. Working for Toby, and I'm working on it more in this current role. That just listen. You look. There's so much knowledge, so much institutional knowledge in this area of people who have been solving problems way longer than I've been around. Farmers and business people, and what we can learn from them if we just listen is that there's no price tag on that.
Yep, there's a wealth of experience there, and we should be drawing on it. All
Mm-hmm.
right, I'm going to let you get back to work. I've eaten up a half an hour of your time, so go save the world, okay?
Thanks, Dave.